Hi everyone, this is James from Wanderlust FP, and today I'm going to run through the best settings for exporting graphics from After Effects. So you're in After Effects and you've finished your graphic and you want to put it into your editing software so you can export all of your footage together into your complete video. Now there are lots of different ways to skin a cat in this. I'm sure other people have got other ways of doing it. This is just the way that I find works best for me. If you've got another way that works for you, stick with it. This is for people that aren't sure about the best way to go about it. So once you've put your composition into your render queue, you need to apply your settings. So the first thing we're going to do is go to render settings, and we're just going to make sure that everything is set to best, because if you're running a slightly slower machine, for example, I'm on a laptop, you might display your footage whilst you're working on it at quarter, half, or a different resolution to full. So you need to make sure that you always select best quality and that you're selecting the resolution to be full. You could do wireframe if you wanted to do a test, and you could also do a lower resolution as well if you wanted to. One final thing to do is to make sure that your composition frame rate is correct to what you want to export out at. If not, you can set your own one. So for example, if you want to change that to 30 or to 50 or whatever, you can do that here. So this is the place to do all those kind of things. Everything else, unless you know what you're doing, you can just kind of leave that blank. So don't need to worry about that for now. And then we're going to go to the output module. At the moment it says lossless. So here is our format. Now all of the footage that comes from my camera comes out in a QuickTime format. So I want to maintain my QuickTime format. Some people call this the container, and I have done in the past as well. This is where calling it a container really starts to make sense. Essentially, this is what is going to be the extension or the file type that you're going to record or export your footage in. And then your video output, in the format option, this is going to be the codec that's used to encode your footage within this container. So to keep all my stuff in line with the stuff on my camera, I'm going to stay at QuickTime, and I'm going to go to Format. And you could use animation. This is a really popular one. However, this codec's quite old now, and it doesn't support an alpha channel. So if you have something that you want to be transparent in your video, I highly recommend you use PNG instead. Now, some people like to remove this and do it as a JPEG sequence or a PNG sequence. Now this is great, and it does work, but what will happen is you'll get an image for every frame that you're rendering. If you've got quite a long clip that you're working with, or really high frames per second, it's going to be a lot of photos that you're going to have to deal with, and it's just difficult to drag around in the program. You can group them together and stuff, but if you keep your format at QuickTime, then you'll actually be able to apply these settings within a movie rather than creating separate images for each one. So I'm actually going to get all the benefits of applying a PNG image sequence to my footage, but I'm going to get all the advantages of working with it in a QuickTime format. So that's something really important, I think. This is like a nice, neat little trick to get around some of the problems that some people might be having. So select PNG, and then you're going to get your alpha channel included in that now, rather than using the animation codec or JPEG. Make sure your quality is set to 100, which it should be. You don't need to worry about any of these other settings. It's going to do everything else is done for you. You don't need to worry about that. Where it says channels, you might want to apply your alpha channel. So here's where you get the opportunity to do that. Just select RGB plus alpha channel, and then you see you get the millions plus colors instead, as opposed to just million colors. The millions plus means you are also incorporating your alpha channel. We don't want to resize, crop any of our footage or anything like that. If you've got audio, then you want to incorporate that here. I highly recommend that you go for an uncompressed audio format. Audio doesn't take a lot of space, so it's worth your while, unless you've got a really, really big opening title sequence or a really long graphic. Then you might want to look at maybe toning it down a little bit, but in this instance it's not demanding on my computer, it doesn't take up loads of space, so stick with uncompressed. And make sure that your audio output, that your kilohertz, is the same as what you want your sequence to be, which also should match up to all of those other sound clips. It's really important that you try and maintain the same rate throughout all of your work, because this is where you're going to start to see problems with stuff not quite syncing up nicely or fitting together correctly. So it's going to help reduce rendering times, and it's going to keep everything in line. 16-bit is more than adequate for what we're working at. I don't have anything that's any higher, so I just click OK. And the last thing to do is just to select the location and name it. And then once you've done that, just click render, wait for the whole process to finish, and then you should be able to just drag and drop your file into your editing program. Now, if you're using Final Cut Pro 7, you're probably going to have to render this type of footage. So what I recommend you do is use a Apple ProRes proxy codec to encode another version of it, drop that in, get your file lined up and do all your editing and messing around with it, and then just do a simple replacement with this higher quality version when you're finished. So that's it, guys. That's everything you need to know from exporting from After Effects. I hope that it works well for you. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the comments and let me know what you think. Thanks.